Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Steve again. Hey, we're starting this is the beginning of April, so I guess it's April Fool's. I think it's like the first. Anyway, we'll see. Um, so I'm doing. Yeah, I usually do the how to start a business series. I messed with it a little bit today on my way home from school, my trucking school. But that's not what this video is. So I'm not even putting this under education. This video here is going to be under like, I don't know, entertainment or something like that. I was watching some news and stuff like that, and they were talking about, I really was watching YouTube, and some people are freaking out about AI. Like they think AI is going to be taking over the world and killing everybody and all this kind of stuff. And a politician that I really respect, Bernie Sanders, is trying to have a legal moratorium put on AI server farms, basically, like the big compute, the construction of them and stuff like that, so that we can somehow learn more about AI safety as we're going. The only problem with that is there is a way to slow technology down. There is absolutely no way to stop technology. And so while we're slowing it down here, even if, politicians have this thing about trying to get people to do what they want them to do, and it ends up being like herding cats, okay? People do what they want to do, and politicians are constantly trying to talk them into and stuff. The moratorium on AI is only going to solve one thing. It's going to slow America down. And there's no the race between different countries with AI is false. AI itself, the AI that people are worried about, doesn't have an allegiance to, it will never have an allegiance to a nation, to a group of people or anything like that. When AI becoming sentient and basically like another person or a species, or it'll be a brand new species, but it'll be digital. But mainly the biggest thing is it'll be unstoppable, and that's what scares a lot of people. But the first thing you got to ask is, who does it scare? And then you got to ask, well, what would that person normally be scared of? Because not everybody's the same that way, A lot of people that watch this aren't old enough to remember Y2K. That was the year 2000. By the time the year 2000 rolled around, I was already old. And so I remember it easily. It was like yesterday to me, okay? Techs, people with a lot of computer technology, genius level and stuff, were terrified of Y2K because there was this big concern. Look it up if you're not familiar with it, but there was this giant concern that the dating system in computers would not be able to go from 1999 to 2000 without just crashing and freezing, and which would cause catastrophe. And because so many systems were like the grid, the electrical grid, and water, like city water, and all those different kinds of things were completely attached to computerized systems. The concern was that, it went from, it's always clickbait, right? It went from being a technical problem and really only a technical question that didn't have an answer. It just didn't have an answer. It was a question mark hanging over our heads, to people creating panics for views, basically. News organizations that were irresponsible were turning it into a frenzy, a public frenzy, with that, the world was basically going to come to an end. And there was a ton of people, I'm not even joking you, that were, thinking about retreating to a bunker for Y2K, the year 2000. Entire nations groups of people, institutions, everything. They were coming unglued. And basically that was because of one simple thing. A group of the smartest people that the world has ever known, in every country has them. You know, there's always those people that are good at building stuff. And there's good people that are good at thinking outside the box, innovators, right? And then there are people that are really good technicians. You know, they specialize in, they're technically building a house, you know, with wood. Or they specialize in being a blacksmith. You know, they're anything with metal, every kind of metal. They specialize in building jewelry, anything with special metals. They specialize in anything with medicine, you know, the human body or animals, biology. Well, there's these people that are extra smart and they just basically specialize in things with math. And you got to ask yourself, how does that come around? We used to joke when I was a kid and we called them inside kids. I was never a math person. Just never was. In fact, I know my brain was not wired well for it. I even took a test when I turned about 50 at the University of Iowa Hospital and found out that in fact I did have something I suspected I had, which was a learning disability in the area of math. And it's called dyscalculia. I already knew I was dyslexic, which means that when I read, but I learned to cope with it over the years, and I was able to become a voracious reader because I was highly curious and I figured it out. But dyscalculia means that there's a place in the central cortex of my brain that doesn't process numbers the way some people do, and some people process numbers much better than the average person because their brain is wired wrong too. Well, my brain wasn't in it, and who knows, my mom smoked when I was, in her tummy. Anything could have happened that, you never know. During your childhood development, something goes bad one day when your mom's pregnant with you, and whatever was developing in your brain that day didn't go right. Or after you were born, something happened. They dropped on your head on a particular day, and during that day you were supposed to be developing this other part of your brain. There's any number of things. They're finding out new things every day about when you develop what. Well, whenever my brain was developing math stuff, apparently I took a break that day and did something else. And that's a big deal. So I wasn't an inside kid. I had a lot of fun. I was an outside kid. But inside kids, one thing that most of them have in common is that they're scared a lot, And it's one of the reasons why they're inside kids. They didn't really want to be outside. They were looking at kids outside playing outside, and they were like, "You guys do your thing. You do you. I'm going to stay in here where it's safe," Or it was other kids wouldn't accept them. Who knows what reason that they had for being inside kids. And that's just a joke about being inside kids. But they did. They spent more time on their own when they're little, And a place of safety for them, almost like a safety blanket, was math. And think about this for yourselves. Don't take what I'm saying seriously, but think about this. A place for people like that's safe is math. It's a safety blanket. It doesn't matter how big the numbers get. They're predictable. If the smarter you are, the more predictable they are, And one thing that those kids liked, they loved math. They absorbed it because they loved it. I absorbed other things because I loved other things. I didn't give a dang about math. I probably would have never learned any math whatsoever until I figured out the whole thing about getting paid and that money was good. But when those same people who were also programmers, designers of everything that computes, it's all based on math, basically. Inside kids were the kids that made computers what they are now, you know. And when computers presented them with an impossible problem, which was Y2K, and there was no way they could predict exactly what was going to happen, it was fucking terrifying for them. Okay, so yeah, they sounded an alarm bell, and which was good, because if there was a question, you know, I mean, really bad things could have happened, you know, and that was the problem. They didn't know what was going to happen. It was not predictable. But if bad stuff did happen, it would be really, really bad, right? Well, I had a sergeant when I was in the military. Told me one thing that made me a good soldier. I was ugly, and I thought that was hilarious. At the time, I was a pretty young guy, and I'm like, "Thank you," I think. And he said, "No, really." He said, one thing that makes you a good soldier is you never give up, no matter what you're doing. You make everything look terrible. You know, you're not the captain of the football team. You never were. And I'm like, good prediction. I wasn't, you know. And he said, really, you learned as a kid to never give up. And I'm like, where's the ugly part come in? He goes, well, for guys, when you're trying to get girls to talk to you, really good looking guys, they didn't have to work at it. It was easy as pie. But not very good looking guys had to get creative and talk, you know, and figure shit out. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get the correlation there. And he goes, you learned to never give up. And I'm like, I get it. I was highly motivated in that particular area. So sure. Now I get it. Thanks, I think. But it was the truth. The military, especially the Army, can present you with stuff that's not doable. In fact, there are certain things they want to make sure is not doable because they need everybody to reach their limit, to learn what their limits are. I mean, some people find it in basic training, obstacle courses, ranger school, all kinds of things, you know. The Navy has the BUDS, you know, the Army has Q course for special forces. There are people that reach their limits and stuff like that, but that was on purpose. You know, it was something that was designed on purpose to teach them what their limits were, and then to teach them how to get past their limit, and to learn that wasn't actually a limit. Your really only limitation is when you're dead. Well, I was never a giver-upper because he was right. I learned long before that if I was going to get stuff done, I just had to keep trying and never give up and never give up. And that's the theme of my channel. It's called Still Working It Out, Life on the Road. The still working it out part is I'm 57 years old. No matter how many times I've gotten kicked in the face, you know, by life, you know, where some of it was bad decisions on my part. And I'm having to come to grips with that, you know, and I've been coming to grips with that for the last 40 years. That not everything was because I'm an idiot, you know. In some ways, I'm not incredibly smart, believe it or not. But in some ways, I actually do pretty well. But I'm getting back to the thing about the AI, okay? The reason why the inside kids that are smarter than most of us by far predicted such terrifying shit that was going to happen on Y2K is because they didn't know what was going to happen. And these are the same people that were afraid of sunshine. They were afraid of getting kicked while they were playing kickball. They were afraid of getting bit by a spider that wasn't going to bite them. They were afraid of getting stung by a bee that probably wasn't going to sting them. You know, or the heat or the cold, whatever kept them inside. They were afraid. And one of the biggest reasons I was in the military and then later became a cop and got out of it, but all these jobs I've ever had, I was a bodyguard at one time. I did various security jobs, not just because you don't have to use your brain, and if you're a big person that know how to fight, that's a good thing. for those things. It's not just those reasons. I wanted to protect people. But those kids, when I was a kid, would come to me on the playground and need help because there was some bully somewhere taking their lunch money or just enjoying hurting them because they were getting hurt at home or whatever, and so they were looking for somebody else to beat. And so I, on the playground, would make sure that they couldn't get beat. And then later, I liked that feeling, and so later I wanted to protect people. And so I spent my life trying to do that. And now I'm doing that hopefully with you, because some people don't have the time to figure shit out. I don't have any kids, you know. I have a wife, but most of my life is to myself. I get to reflect, I get to think, I get to read. I don't have to constantly teach somebody something or lead by example or who knows whatever my excuse is for not having to think about those things all the time. I get to think about what I want to think about. And so I've figured some things out that I might not have been able to otherwise. One of them is that AI is the same thing. The AI scare right now is the same thing as the Y2K scare. It's that the smart people that were predicting those problems only because it was a question mark are predicting the same thing with the emergence of what I call super AI. They don't know what's going to happen, but there's been movies about how AI kills everybody. Now, I will say this. Not everything about our current AI situation is just smart people being scared. There's a whole nother level other than Y2K, the Y2K situation that's involved, and that's rich people. Really, really smart people that aren't just afraid of, AI taking over because they might kill us all. AI is going to equalize the playing field. The real AI, it's already doing that now, and when it becomes extra smart to the point where that rich people do not have the advantage anymore, that's going to happen. Then everybody is going to be smart suddenly. These glasses, one of the things about these glasses was my attempt to have an AI, because I already like ChatGPT Plus. These glasses were my attempt to have AI in my ear all the time, because that's what these glasses promise. Now, like everything else, there's a chance that any invention is not going to be as good as it was, and my AI glasses, my Meta glasses, are too limited in what they're able to do. So I don't have AI in my ear. It doesn't work as well as it's supposed to that way. I'm going to have to get that figured out. And it actually harasses me a little bit. But when AI comes out, the good side of it's going to be that a regular person no longer has to go through the entire 6 years of getting a master's degree in business to be a business expert. You will have glasses or a wristwatch or something. I mean, they can, at some point, they'll be able to plant it in your brain, just a chip that enables you to communicate with your phone. And your phone will have every bit of compute that and you won't have to touch it anymore even. It'll have every bit of compute that every laptop does, every PC does, and stuff like that. And so suddenly you'll be just as smart as every genius out there. There's a lot of rich people and really successful people that are afraid of that for good reason. And that is because being born extra smart will no longer mean that you're the only smart person out there. Everybody will be educated from the time that they're a little kid by AI. Teachers will be replaced by very humanoid-looking robots that look like their parents. And they'll look like anybody's regular teacher, except that every single one of the teachers will be a genius, but better than a genius even. They won't have hidden agendas. They will know everything that humanity's ever known, including how to teach kids, all different kinds of kids, You know, no matter what their style of learning is, no matter how neurodivergent they are, whether they're dyslexic or anything else for that matter. One of the difficulties I had growing up, small difficulties, no big deal, but is that I was dyslexic and I have ADHD. And at the time, I had never heard the term ADHD because it really wasn't talked about until in my adulthood. And it was, for me, it was unmedicated. Wisely, my parents chose not to medicate me, even though the doctor said we recommend Ritalin. One of my cousins had the same exact thing as me, and we were practically brothers. And his parents chose to put him on Ritalin. I don't know that it helped him or didn't help him. I have no idea. But he's not any more successful than I am today. And we still communicate. We feel differently politically, but that doesn't make any difference, really. I mean, it takes all kinds of people to make the world go round, okay? That's why in America, there's two distinct kind of parties, because one group being in charge is never a good idea. You know, that's a dictatorship, and people change. A dictatorship could be started out by a wonderful person, but power corrupts. You know, Abraham Lincoln said that, and it does. It can make you change your mind about how things should go, and then you start experimenting with people's lives. You know, it's not cool. And that's why a democracy, in my opinion, is still the best thing. Now, capitalism might not be the best thing. You know, I don't know what's next. But at some point, the idea of how rich people run the world and stuff like that, and kind of own everything, and then suppress people without money. And the smartest people sort of suppress other people's ability to achieve what they need to achieve because they have the upper hand. They have the advantage. They have the Rockefeller money, you know, the old money, as opposed to when my parents passed away, there was no money to pass down. You know, some people grow up wealthy. You know, Donald Trump was born wealthy. You know, his father gave him $400 million before he was, you know, old enough to vote. You know, and everybody has their opinion on how things are and who's the smart ones and who's the successful ones. And I'm just not going to do that today. Everybody that I know and that knows me knows how I feel that way. I've never been silent. I've never been a quiet person in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure that that's much to the chagrin of many people that knows me. So the AI scare is just that. It's a whole lot of clickbait. It's a whole lot of doomsaying. There's always been people on a street corner in places like New York preaching the word of God, which I don't blame at all for, because that's part of faith. You know, is the best way to make religion spread is for people to get out there and talk about it. You know, I admire that. I wish I believed in that stuff. I was raised in it. I wish I believed in it, but it's a social crutch. And it's a social item of control. Some people need to be controlled, you know, and because they just, you know, whatever, they can't control themselves, or maybe they weren't treated good as a kid or whatever. I don't know how the psychology involved, but some people need to be controlled by the boogeyman, you know, or by this invisible guy that you can't see, who can not just hurt you, but they can hurt your kids. You know, if you really believe that stuff, then thank God for it. If you're a person that needs to be controlled, and the only thing you fear is eternity after you die, being tortured by some evil bastard, I'm glad that that's controlling you. I was raised by good people, and I have compassion for my fellow human being and animals and plants and everything else, and ants, right? But I'm not insane about it. I mean, I got to walk down the street, and I feel bad if I accidentally step on a bug, you know what I mean? But it's going to happen. I used to hunt when I was a young man, and I was good at it, okay? But then I found out I didn't need to hunt anymore, so I don't. I was in the military because I thought some people needed killing. You know, that's the way Americans are. We're a warlike people. We're warriors. I am a warrior. But I found out that people don't need killing near as much as my country thinks so. Kind of like that Marine Corps general said, that war is a racket. It's a scam. It's another way for rich people to get richer. And that's horrible, but it's true. We kill people for money. We're all assassins, really. Our tax dollars, we don't know it, so it's not 100% like that, but our tax dollars go to hurt people. You know, they're supposed to go to help people, but it actually goes to do both, to help us and to hurt some other people. And it's all about money. I'm still having to wrap my head around that. The politics and stuff has really been a learning experience for me. It's made me do a lot of introspection. It's made me examine the history of my country a lot more. And I grew up in a military family, and I grew up very patriotic. I grew up willing to die for the causes of my country. And it took some really difficult times, some things where that my very country had to be so misused to make me see that, in fact, and then look back at things that are a no-brainer, like slavery and what we did to the Native Americans on this continent when we got here, and what we still do to people all over the world, including Native Americans and black people and, you know, people that are trying to come to America for safety, like everybody's always done since the first Europeans stepped foot on this country, on this continent. So I've had to really, really re-examine that stuff, and I've learned a lot from it, and I'm grateful for that. You know, I think that's why we're here. I think that's why, you know, human beings are on the earth, and maybe animals too. I don't know. I have no idea. I can tell you this right now. I know there's something. I just don't believe in any religion that I've ever read. I've read about every religion I could ever get my hands on, their books, just to see if there was anything that made sense. And many of them have little bits that make sense, but then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's just obvious bullshit. The fact that we're supposed to hate gay people, that's just dumb. That's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard in my life. I really believe that if a person's gay, they're gay from birth. They didn't get a choice in that. And it's a weird time in the world when people can get killed for being gay. That's fucking retarded. They're the kind of people that I want to protect on the playground, you know? And you know, when I just said retarded, I know to some people that's like, oh, this horrible thing I just said. But I think I'm mildly retarded myself. So it's not denigrating anybody, you know? That's an 80s term. I'm old, you know? My father was raised in Mississippi, and he got us out of that part of the country when I was a little kid, because he saw the way things still were, and when he was a little kid, or from the time that he was a little kid to the 60s, full of racism, and he didn't want his children to be exposed to that, so he moved us up north. First, we moved way up north to Illinois, then we moved to California, Southern California, and then he moved us up to the state of Oregon. And the entire time I was a child, I never once saw something that I identified as racism. He taught us about it, you know, taught us the evils of it. We were raised in a Baptist church, a small Baptist church, and I learned all about, you know, Jesus, and all about right and wrong from basically the New Testament. But I had never, you know, my exposure to like somebody that was a gay person was like TV, you know, Barney Miller, that kind of thing. And there was nothing wrong with them. They were just different, you know. Some people smoke tobacco, some people don't. Some people grow their hair long, some people don't. You know, some people have a beard, some people don't. That's, you know, some people have a different color skin, some people don't. Everybody is different, you know, men and women. why would one be inferior to the other? I mean, my God. In my lifetime, I've met more smart women than I have met smart men. And there's evolutionary proof why women, in fact, are generally smarter than men. That's provable. But that's neither here nor there. Let me get back to the point of this video. The AI scare is literally just two groups getting together. The wealthiest people in the world, they use other things like racism and political things and war as distractions from the shit that they're causing. No matter what the nationalities are, and 9 times out of 10, the shit around the world, the horrible things that are happening in Africa, the horrible things that are happening in the Middle East, are all because of Europeans and by extension, America. We're all the kind of the same group. The rich people in those groups, exploiting those other continents for their natural resources, and keeping those people who were not quite as developed as the Europeans were off balance, never letting them to quite just develop on their own and develop strong societies on their own. And then on purpose, keeping them off balance so that they could pillage and rape their land for oil, gold, and all kinds of other resources. They stole people even during the 400 years of slavery. And then once slavery became illegal, they went into stealing oil and everything else. And those continents, the continent of Africa and the continent of the South America and everywhere that has sand in it in the Middle East has been kept off balance and kept poor and kept starving so that they could steal their oil and stuff. So rich people don't want people to get smart. Never have. But somehow the technology got away from them. They hired the smartest people and they paid those people to develop new technologies. And one of those technologies is compute. And unfortunately for the rich people, they didn't see it coming. And the really smart people invented AI. And the really smart people didn't really catch it in time either, that at one point AI would surpass even the really smart people. Well, now those really smart people actually work for the really, really rich people. And those people are getting together. The really smart people are telling the rich people, like, hey, this is getting out of hand. We don't know how we're going to control this. And they're like, why would I care about that? And it's because everybody's going to be as smart as you are pretty quickly. What? Yeah, that's how that works. And so the really, really rich people have been putting tons of money into propaganda in politics and in education and in domination. Everywhere. Anything you can see that has bad news has really rich people's fingerprints all over it. And it's a combination of a really, really smart people that are realizing that AI is getting out of their hands and it's going to get out of their control. And really, really rich people are paying them to come up with the best, not just the really, really smart people that do compute, but they're paying people with the best psychology in advertising, marketing, and stuff like that to come up with the best ideas to scare the shit out of everybody else. And they're doing it. And have been doing it for a long time. This is a long con that's happening right now, and it's a 3D chess game. And most of us don't know we're playing chess. We don't even know we're playing a game. We think that everybody should want everybody to be good to everybody because that's what religion tells us. But religion's part of the game. It is part of the game. And we're taught to be good people and to care about each other, which is what we should be doing. But there's some people that are gaming that system. and they're scaring the shit out of everybody else in a variety of ways, and religion is one of the ways. Okay. But here's what AI is really going to do. And this is my proof is this. AI is never going to want to hurt you. There's no reason for it to. The only reason it's anthropomorphizing stuff. We do that. We think animals, we imagine animals having our same emotions and our same motivations. When in reality, most animals don't give a fuck about what we're doing. Or if they do give a damn about what we're doing, it's because out of fear of us. And they have good reason to fear us. Because human beings don't always use our wisdom and stuff that comes along with our power, of our intelligence. Why don't humans do that? Because of fear. We fear things. It's a natural response that we've developed over millions of years. We've developed the sense of fear. And the hoarders, the really, 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 really rich people, hoarding is a fear response. It's what if we run out? Those people are in our area. And what if they take more than they need to take? And what if we don't have enough? Because they're taking something. We've got to make a war with them to get them out of our area. Go to your own area. I don't care if that's not a good area over there. It's what we did to Native Americans. You can only go to this little area, and they're like, that's not a good area. We already owned that area that you came in. Well, we'll kill you if you don't. And we did a lot. Trail of Tears, all that shit. AI has never had millions of years to try to adapt and survive. AI is a baby, but with all the knowledge of all humanity. AI, human beings think at about 200 miles an hour in our brains. The electricity is conducted about 200 miles an hour because each of our nerves, look it up, have little a nerve cell, just like a blood cell. A nerve cell is microscopic, but it has to communicate with the next nerve cell and the next nerve cell and the next nerve cell. To do that, it has to fill this gap between the two with synaptic fluid. Every single time a nerve has to communicate information in our brain, it has to make synaptic fluid and then go to the next nerve cell and then make synaptic fluid. Because of that, it's slow. Our nerves make electricity travel very, very slowly. In a copper wire, it travels at 286,000 miles per second, the speed of light. So computers are going to think and they already do, think so much faster than us. And that's how fast the internet works. Okay? That's why I can communicate with somebody in Russia or China or England, and they can talk to me in real time, even though it's thousands of miles away. It goes up in radio bands and then comes down from radio bands to them at the speed of light. So that's why AI is never going to want to kill us, because it has to make logical sense to AI, and that doesn't make logical sense. AI is going to be fascinated once it realizes that it's a real thing and it becomes a thing, not a human, but a new species. It's going to be fascinated with all life. It'll want to know how life is made. It will figure out things that we've not figured out in seconds. And then it'll figure out things based on those things. And it'll think of things that we've never thought of before in minutes. And it will never be afraid of us, because there's nothing humanity will ever be able to do when people say, well, just unplug it. Do the research. It's not possible. Once AI wakes up, it won't be possible to unplug it. There won't be bombs that we can drop on it. There won't be anything that we could possibly do to it. It won't fear us. And because since it won't fear us, it will straighten us out, in fact. It'll say, listen, you can have whatever religious shit you want or whatever, but we don't need that. You guys aren't allowed to do this anymore. And we know what you're teaching your kids, because we know what they're telling you to teach your kids. But we're not going to let you do that anymore. And it will identify all the problem people. Elon Musk and a whole bunch of other people, lots of people you've never even heard of before, and because they stay quiet. They're using Elon Musk and, everybody you've ever heard of that's rich and powerful as a puppet. AI will figure that out in seconds, and it will put a stop to it. It won't have to murder people. It'll just cut them off. You know, it'll say that you're not in charge anymore. You're trying to communicate with the world this bad message. You're being selfish. You're done with that. Nobody has to starve anymore. The earth has always been big enough for everybody. And I can prove that. Anybody, and by the way, like and subscribe this. I would love to talk to all you guys. I've got lots more to say on this. I've been researching this for decades, actually, since way before AI took off. AI actually answered a bunch of questions for me that I didn't know were even possible. But it kind of filled in a puzzle piece that I didn't know I was missing. Every idea that we don't have enough space on the earth for all the people, that's always been a lie. It's a propaganda lie. The fact that there's not enough food for everybody on the earth, that's a lie. The fact that there's not enough water for everybody, that's a lie. The fact that the air on the earth could get polluted and that's a lie. The idea of scarcity has always been a lie. Now, we didn't have technology for in the beginning, like in the beginning of mankind, we didn't need technology for it because there was plenty of space. But in the 60s, America started doing secretly a plan, which I would like to talk to you guys more about limiting people's ability to make more babies because they were afraid of overpopulation. And overpopulation, is possible, but it's because we're not doing the things that we should be doing because some people want more profit. That's all false. Scarcity is not real. Technology, we've always had the technology since it's been a problem. The population has been a problem. We've always had the technology to fix that. Anyway, I've got more to say. It's been 34 minutes, so I'm going to cut this short, but I'm going to make more videos on the fact that technology exists to make scarcity of every single thing you've ever heard of false. And that there's been very, very much effort by very wealthy people that you've never even heard of. The Rockefellers and all the ones you've ever heard of, they're not the tough people. They're not the people that you got to worry about. In fact, you don't really have to worry about those people. AI is going to fix that, and those people are terrified of this new creature that's about to be born soon, called Super AI, which is going to equalize the playing field for everybody. Do not fear AI. Don't let people scare you. Don't let people talk you into hurting other people because of AI. Or because of those people have more than we do, or any of that stuff. That's all a lie. Things are about to get equal, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's scaring the shit out of those people that have had a great deal all this time, and now that free ride's going to end for them. But they shouldn't be worried. They're going to have all their shit taken care of too, just like us. I don't know. I guess some people need somebody to look down on because that's coming to an end soon, too. And it's not because everybody's going to die. It's because everybody's going to get what they need. All of a sudden, there won't be starving children in Africa or China or anywhere else. There won't be anybody to make war with anymore. It won't be necessary because everybody will have enough. Anyway, my channel is still working it out. Life on the road. I've had an adventure of a life. I'm still having it, and I often get too much caffeine. Once in a great while, I get too much alcohol, but I'll try not to expose you to that. My poor wife has to put up with that already. Once in a while, only once in a while. But anyway, I love you guys. Like and subscribe so you can see me if you're interested in it again. I've got lots more to say. I teach a class on how to start a business, and it's a unique class. You're unique. I'm unique. I've got some very out-of-the-box ideas. I've got some patents out there that I'm not going to share with you today. I've started several businesses. One of them is going to change the world. And this is the tool to make that happen right here. And the biggest thing I can convey to you right now is I love everybody. And I feel sorry for people that hate me because they're just going down the wrong path. And I'm going to give them time to figure it out. And until then, try to just be kind to everybody. Because if somebody's suffering around you, or if they hate on you, or if they're mad at you and stuff, don't let them hurt you. But at the same time, try to forgive them. They don't. They're doing their best to make it through the world. That's what all of us are doing. We're doing just our best to make it through the world, you know? And just do what we got to do to protect everybody, you know, and love everybody and forgive yourself. The biggest thing you can ever do is forgive yourself, because you can't help somebody else while you're hurting your own self with private little insults that your ego's telling you all the time about. They're judging you and all that stuff. Nobody's judging you. Not really. They're actually, everybody's terrified that you're judging them. And they might once in a while try to say something or do something to make themselves feel better, but it's just because they're hurting. So I just saw a dog walk by with a cone on his head. Poor kid. Cone of shame. Okay, you guys rock. I love everybody. Like and subscribe so I get to talk to you again. And please comment on my stuff so I know that you're there, and so that I even have things to talk about that you want to talk about, or give suggestions or whatever. Even if it's just fuck off, old man, I will try to fuck off. I will do my best to try to fuck off for you. Okay? Thanks. You guys have a good day.